Awesome. Sam, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Beautiful. All right. What's up, everybody? What's up, YouTube? What's up, Sydney? What's up, Deborah? Yo, one of my favorite things is when people get inside here before the show even starts. Shout out to Deborah. She was on my live earlier today as well. And she was like the first person to drop a comment. So, guys, I'm excited for today's episode. It's episode 112. I feel like I always got to tell you what episode number it is because each week is a record breaking week, right? Like it's like what Kobe Bryant said to Kanye, like how many records can your records break? And apparently more records is the correct answer around here. So tonight we're going to be, and I don't know what happened, Sam's camera, apparently Sam's got a busted camera that he ordered off of Temu and it's not working. So if you're hanging out on Instagram, comment YouTube, come over to the YouTube channel. We're going to be getting going. There we go.
That's
Sam's Temu camera is working again. And yeah, so tonight I'm excited about this week's episode because it's a conversation about a strategy, I would say, that frankly, the top entrepreneurs that I know in my inner circle, the top entrepreneurs that I'm aware of that I pay attention to, is it's something that they're using. And they tapped into a critical skill set and a critical characteristic and developed it within themselves. And that characteristic, that skill set is summarized with one word, and that word is influence. And we're going to be talking tonight about what really we refer to as the law of influence. And I don't think Sam and I have ever even really covered this topic on the Think Big podcast, at least not in this way. So as we go through it, where you're going to see this conversation is going to get more refined, but I want you all to tune in the comments when something we say resonates with you, or if you have a question, make sure you're dropping it in the comments because that's the benefit of us being live while we do these. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But before I do, Sam, how are you feeling today, bro? I always got I like to do a pulse check-in with you.
I'm good, dude. I'm good. This entire last 2 weeks have been absolutely brutal in the businesses because we're finishing out the year. We're doing all the things for the businesses that need to happen at the end of the year, and it's very intensive. But here's the cool thing: with all of the craziness that's happening behind the scenes, it is always great to have your week recentered by a staple that's consistent, and for me that is Think Big. And so, dude, I'm good. It's hectic. They're all amazing problems to have, but I'm just stoked to be here, man, because like I know if I hit Think Big in the week, like the rest of the week doesn't matter what happens because like the week's been won for me. So dude, I'm good, and I'm excited about today because law of influence, bro. I don't think you nor I would be where we're at if we didn't see things the way that we do and see this topic the way that we do. So I'm excited, man. Let's do it.
100% agreed. And also shout out to Mac. I think this is the first time I've ever seen Mac. Actually, this is the second time. That's a lie. Second time I've seen Mac on the on YouTube live while the episode's happening. Typically, Mac will, if you guys don't know Mac, we usually reshare his post every week because he always does these fire recaps of the Think Big podcast. And so shout out to Mac for being here live right now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into it. I put together a little bit of a small presentation. I don't often do PowerPoints. You guys know that about me. So if you don't like my PowerPoint, get over it. But if you do like it, let me know in the chats, all right? But I'm going to figure out how to share my screen and present it because I just like to make sure I stay on point because I've been doing these lives every day, Sam. You've been seeing them on YouTube and Instagram. And so my ability to keep talking has grown exponentially. And I want to make sure I don't do that here tonight. But let's go ahead. And Sam told me not to start with this slide, but I decided I was going to start with it anyway, which is this concept that I learned this from a mentor of mine. And this is a term that most people have never heard. In fact, I can guarantee you, unless you work directly with this individual, you never heard about this what we call internally crafting for kings. And so that mentor, his name was a gentleman by the name of Mark Hoverson. Now, Mark Hoverson has since passed away, but, just an absolute gem of a human being. And he taught me that when you're building in your career, when you're building as an entrepreneur and going into the marketplace, ultimately, you've got to start to think about who it is that you're building for and really direct your aim and focus at curating the best experience, the best product for that individual. And he suggested now that when you go about crafting your skill, when you go about getting into the marketplace, that you determine that you're going to craft for kings. And he quoted me this Bible verse, and I'm going to explain it. I'm going to read this out and I'm going to explain it to you guys. So pay close attention. So this is from Proverbs, from King Solomon, Proverbs 22, verse 29. It says, "Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank." In other words, it will say, instead of officials of low rank, it'll say ordinary people. And to me, I was like, that doesn't mean much. I got to be honest, right? Like, I didn't grow up a scholar of scripture. And he said, all right, well, let's look at this. Like, let's actually break it apart. And he says, when you see somebody skilled at work, they're going to serve before kings. And it was important that we understand, what is a king? Ultimately, a king is a person of the people. A king is, in the perfect world, a king is for the people. And so the king rules over the kingdom, and the king's job is to ensure that the kingdom is prosperous, that everybody has what they need, that the people are taken care of. And so when the king finds something good, the king is supposed to share it with his people. And so it says that those who are skilled, they will serve before the king, and they're not just going to serve before officials or ordinary people, people of low rank. And when you start to serve the king and the king says, this is good, that what you have, it gets spread and dispersed amongst the people. And so this concept of crafting for kings, he said, Marlon, when you go out and you start to build and you start to really hone in on your craft and hone in on your skill, I need you to think about, who is it that you're trying to impress? See, so many times we get into business and we're coming from a place of having nothing. That's why most of us become entrepreneurs. We have a problem in our own lives and we're wanting to solve it. And we start trying to impress our friends who are in the same position as us. We're trying to impress ordinary people. We're trying to impress the people who are at the bottom of the barrel alongside us. And so our efforts are really going to make them say, heck yeah, look at what he's doing. But the reality is, impressing my friends who are also at the bottom doesn't actually help me lift up. And I started to recognize this personally. I'll share a little bit of a story about this later. And I use this law of influence here without realizing it earlier in my career, but I became more intentional. And so when Mark said, you want to be specific about crafting for kings, he started to point out some other examples in the marketplace of people who had crafted for kings, who had impressed the kings, who had impressed people of high influence inside of their domain, inside of their industry. And that became a catalyst for a quantum leap. See, it wasn't this linear progression that they were starting to make inside their lives and business. It became these massive leaps where they were skipping 5 years, 10 years of work. They were condensing decades into months and weeks and days, because they got intentional about going and impressing the king, going and impressing the people who have influence. And Sam, he and I, what's funny is, when Sam and I first connected, we actually connected on this. This was one of the topics that we started talking about. Like, hey, you also see the world the way I see the world. You also understand things the way I understand things, and you're leveraging these strategies to grow at an alarmingly fast rate that seems like a miracle to everybody else, but in fact, it's actually really strategic. And so, before I continue there, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, because I want to bring it back to Sam. Sam, we're good right now so far?
Yeah, dude, we're like 10 minutes in. You are so good on time.
Okay, cool. I get caught up with these slideshows. So let me bring it back over here. All right, share my screen. Beautiful. All right, so I gotta lay a little bit of a foundation though before we start to take this train out of the station, before we take this plane off, because I wanna warn you guys right now that as you're here tonight and as you're gathering information, as you're gathering knowledge, as you're gathering resources and tools, I want you to be applying this information tonight that you're gathering, these resources that you're gathering towards the garden that you already started planting. And I borrowed from one of our favorite mentors. I borrowed from Alex Hermosi, and it's this saying of more, better, new. So before we get into more details tonight, before I start showing you other people's case studies, before I start showing you some of our case studies of this, I want you to remember this: more, better, new. And the best way I can show you this is a beautiful tweet from Alex Hermosi that says, to grow, do more until more steps stop working. Then do better, then go back to more. And when you can't do any more and you can't do any better, only then do you try something new. And so tonight, as we're teaching, as we're giving you information, I want you to think about, how do I apply this to the thing that I've already committed to? How do I add on and continue in the direction that I've already started? How do I not deviate? How do I not give up? But how do I remain convicted and do more of what I'm doing until I can't do it anymore and it's not working? And then I figure out how to do it better. And then once I figure out how to do it better, I go to do more of that stuff, and I keep doing it better and more until I can no longer make it any better and I can no longer do any more. And then only then do we start doing something new. So I just had to put this here. I felt compelled to, I added this slide last minute because I felt that it was necessary before we continue. Now, back to crafting for kings. I need you to start thinking about choosing who you want to impress. And I was looking for individuals who had embodied this, and businesses that had embodied this, where they got clear about crafting for kings. They got clear about, hey, the skill set I have, I can apply it across the board to anybody, but I'm going to go find the best. And there's an individual who most of you may or may not know. His name is Ryan Serhant. You guys might be familiar with him if you know the show $1 Million Listing. And so Ryan Serhant runs Serhant Ventures and Serhant Capital and Serhant, like the whole Serhant brand. And effectively, they only do $1 million and multi-million dollar listings. This guy was getting started in his career. A lot of people don't know he didn't start off as a real estate entrepreneur, as a real estate agent, as a broker. That wasn't his dream. His dream was actually to be an actor. And so he followed his dream into New York, was working on his acting career and needed to make some side income, and decided, like, oh, I know what a good side hustle is. I'll just get my real estate license because then I could sell houses on the weekend. Because that's going to be so easy. Well, obviously, you guys know it's not that easy to do. And Ryan was struggling to make ends meet between his acting career. He wasn't really getting a lot of gigs, and between listings, he wasn't really getting much listings. And so he's down to his last couple of dollars. He's broke. He's about to have to give up on his dream. And it occurs to him one night that he is struggling so badly to get even the most, like just the smallest listing, that he said, well, if I'm struggling to get these small listings and I'm really not getting anything at all, why don't I go big? Like, if I'm going to fail, I might as well fail big. And he decides to change his approach. He says, I've been going after all the small fish. I've been trying to impress the average nobodies, and the average nobodies, I'm sorry, the ordinary people, they're cheap. They don't want to work with an agent. They don't want to pay a commission. They don't want help to do this. He said, instead, I'm going to go and I want to be the person that services the wealthiest of the wealthy. I mean, I'm in Manhattan, for Christ's sake. Like, I'm going to go service those people. And he decided to do this. He goes and opens up the book of business that they have, and he finds the person that is the wealthiest in there. And he decides, I'm going after her. I'm going to target her. Now, if you guys know his story, and I'm not going to get into it tonight, he actually lands her as a client, does her listing, and realizes, wow, she is just as human as everybody else. But the difference is, when I served her and I did a good job with her, she opened up the Rolodex of friends and connections and opportunities. By serving this one queen, in this case, it opened up an entire kingdom of individuals. It opened up an entire network of other royalty. Let's look at this. That right there is a hotel. If you guys are familiar with the Four Seasons, when they started to think about who they were going to service, they decided that they were going to service the upper echelon. They were going to service the folks who really they were the wealthiest of the wealthy. And by doing so, they attract a higher clientele. So they got clear on who it is they're trying to impress. Top CEOs. I mean, people that stay at these hotels, starting rates are around $1,200 a night for the most basic rooms. And so get clear on who you want to impress. Get clear on who you need to impress. Get clear on, hey, if I land this customer or this type of clientele, or if I break into this place in the marketplace, this is where more of my opportunities will come. Start to figure out who do you need to impress. And so I want to bring in an example that you guys might be familiar with. I know this crowd, you guys are real estate investors, and a lot of you hopefully know this name. You know the name Alexis Morgan. Now, I love Alexis. Alexis is someone that I've had the good fortune of being able to work with. She came in, she was actually one of my early coaching clients. So she's done some high performance coaching with me. I was introduced to her back when she was 19. Sam, check this out. Alexis is only 21. She just turned 21 in October. So she's a young buck. And what's so interesting is at the age of 20, at 19, 20, 21, Alexis decided that she was going to get clear. She got focused. She and I were talking about what is it that you need to do to hit your goals. And we realized, well, because of your youth, because of your, like, let's be honest, she's in the world of real estate investing. This is a male dominated industry, not just any male dominated industry. This is like an old white man dominated industry. That's just the reality. Like, that's what the stats will show us here in the US, that she is absolutely like a minority. Like, you're a young Black girl with no experience getting into this world. You are at a disadvantage. You don't look like the people around you. You don't sound like the people around you. You're not connected like the people around you. You didn't grow up with a wealthy family. And so your authority and your influence in this space is quite low. But in order to do this business at the highest level, you need influence. In order to do this business at the highest level, you're going to need network. You're going to need connection. And so rather than Alexis sitting down and thinking like, okay, well, what can I do so that in the next 10 years I can have the network necessary? We had a conversation about, well, who already has the network that you need? Who's already plugged in? Who is it that if you get their attention, right? Like, you don't need the attention of 1,000. You don't need to figure out how to get the attention of 1,000 people. You need to figure out how to get the attention of one person who already holds your 1,000. And we sat down and we discussed that. And it turns that she was like, well, you know what? There is somebody who I've been talking to who has been on my radar. We're in the same community. We're in the same network. He's doing business at a high level. And I think there's I could possibly have an audience with him. And if I can impress him, I think things can really jump off. And some of you know a little bit of Alexis's story, that it's a gentleman that really, a good friend of Sam and I's, Abraham Gray. So Alexis saw that, like, hey, there's a potential that if I can go and impress Abraham, if I can impress him with my work ethic, if I can impress him with my personality, if I can impress him with the results I can produce, then he can put me on a platform. He can elevate me. He can give me authority. He can give me credibility. He can give me support. And therefore, it will allow me to expedite my growth. I could have quantum leaps in a very small period of time. And we came to that conclusion. And so that became the focus. She found her king, right? She found the person that, hey, if I impress that individual, the kingdom under his domain opens up onto me. And so that's what she did. And because of her making that decision, because of her getting clear about who to impress, finding him, and now pay attention to this. When she figured out who she was going to go impress, she didn't just do the lazy, hey, you know, my name's Alexis and what's your name? Abraham. Awesome. Abraham, how can I bring value to you? No, she didn't ask such a lazy question. Instead, what she did was she observed. I said, we got to study. We got to look and see, what is he focused on? What is he currently promoting? What is he currently up to? Start to study the man. Start to go and befriend him. Go and create an organic relationship and get to truly understand what is it that he needs. And then see a need, fill a need. Don't ask for permission to give value. Just start giving. Go and impress. That's how you impress someone. When you can meet my needs without me telling you what they are, do you think I'm impressed? The answer is, of course. This is how you service a king. This is how you service a queen, right? Like if Queen Elizabeth had to tell all of her subjects everything she needed, those subjects wouldn't stay around for very long, right? Like they would not be in the palace with her. They need to be able to anticipate her needs. At the Four Seasons, if anyone's ever stayed at a Four Seasons, you know the reason that they are so world renowned is because the staff has a way of intuitively anticipating your needs, and they will go above and beyond to fill them. And so Alexis did this, and as a result, at the age of 20, she was in a place where she was comfortably doing between $20,000 to $30,000 in net profit to herself monthly recurring, based on one relationship, one king to impress. And on top of that, she went from a place of just kind of working for him to working with him, right? Like a true partnership had formed because she had so impressed the king. This is critical. Impressing a king, crafting for a king, building your offer and building your experience and your product and your service with that white glove for the king of the kingdom is effectively, I don't want to say a cheat code, but it's a highway versus taking the back street with potholes, right? The back street with potholes and detours and red lights. This is now taking the expressway. This is not only being on the highway, this is being on the highway in the HOV lane. All right. Now, let's keep going here for a second, because that's a big example. And I know sometimes you're like, well, I don't know that person. I don't have an Abraham Gray who's worth over $100 million, right? I'm not in some of these circles, and I'm connected to absolutely nobody, right? I thought about this because that used to be one of my worries in the past. If I'm being totally honest, I remembered getting into entrepreneurship, getting into business, and knowing that I wanted to be around better people and struggling to figure out where are these people, where I don't know where they hang out. It's like if they're all hanging out somewhere, it's like by the time I got there, they were gone. It's almost like if anyone's played Pokemon and you remember chasing the legendary dogs, and you would go and you'd see on your map, like, okay, he's over here. And then you would go over there. And then when you're in the grass looking for him, like, where is he? And you look on your map again and you realize he's like on the other side of the map. I hated that feeling. And that's what it felt like trying to track down entrepreneurs and successful individuals, the kings who I wanted to impress. And so what I did, and I want to share this with you guys because quite frankly, anyone could do this. And funny enough, Sam and I have this in common. We both did something like this, is I started a podcast. I started a podcast called Into the Mind. And I might let a little bit of this play. I might not. I haven't decided yet. But I wanted to share that because this is one of the first episodes I ever did. In fact, I think this is the first episode with an entrepreneur that I ever did. I started this podcast and I was online. I'm like on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm looking and I'm seeing, I'm like, man, like I finally found somebody in my area, in my local neighborhood, who seemed to be doing the things I wanted to do. He was way ahead of me. He was around my age. And I'm like, this dude has a following. He's got an influence. He's got wisdom. He's got connections. He has resources. And I want to impress him. And funny enough, I had somewhat of an in the sense that this guy, his name's Alon, who you see on the screen. I actually had met Alon about 6 years prior in passing in a park back when I was doing parkour and he was doing a calisthenic workout, and we just got to talking and we goofed around and we knew of each other, but we weren't really friends yet. We had one interaction that one day, and I think maybe we saw each other at a sandwich shop a few years later, but that was about it. And so when I saw him, I was like, man, I want to get into that spare of influence. I want to be around him. And so I was trying to figure out, how can I impress him? How can I bring value to him? Because at that point in time, he was already well established in a business. He had already started a few businesses. He already had an exit at a young age. He was about the same age as me, 1 year younger. He had already had an exit in a business, and now he was already acquiring properties. He was flipping properties, and he had an acquisitions team. He had an office space. In fact, that's us in his office. He's about 24 years old in this video. And I'm like, I don't know what I can do. So I start noticing that Alon is building up a social media presence and he's starting to really, push more on that. I'm seeing him posting more content. And I decide, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, like, guys, I'm not kidding. I'm going to go buy a microphone. You guys see that little black Yeti next to his hand? And when I purchased a microphone, what you're looking at is my GoPro. I got my GoPro camera and grabbed my sister's MacBook. That's not even my MacBook because my laptop was too slow to even like allow the microphone to be processed on it. I mean, like, guys, I was just starting out. I did not have resources. And I hit up Alon and I said, Alon, I love what you're doing. You're clearly looking to influence the next generation. I'm being influenced by your work. You and I met in the park way back when, and I want to be able to spread your message and spread the value you're bringing with my audience. Guys, my audience was, I didn't have an audience, right? But I had a microphone and I had a vision. And so I told Alon these things, and he said, you know what? I like it. Come down to the office. Come over to, he sent me the address, and we sat down, we had this interview. And what was amazing, Alon, great guy, to this day, I'm still great friends with him. He over $100 million of assets in his portfolio, just phenomenal hustler. Sam, I got to introduce you to Alon one day. Actually, you two would get along like crazy. And what's interesting is at the end of the interview, Alon actually, he really the message I'm giving to you guys about this idea of crafting for kings, Alon put that like even deeper into my head where he said, Marlon, I don't know if you understand what you're doing right now with this podcast. Like he said, you impressed me. You impressed me because you showed initiative. You impressed me because you showed up and you brought value to me because I'm a businessman, Marlon. And he said, and I'm in the circle of other businessmen and we're busy. We don't have the time to sit around and just chat. But because you came and you said, look, let's capture this on video and let's distribute this online and let's get this in front of other people, you're allowing me to grow my influence. And also, he said, you're allowing me to talk about some of the things that I've done. You're letting me, I get to share and I'm not bragging. He said one of the hard things about being young and being successful, or just being successful, is you want to share what's going on. But when you start to share it to people, it seems like you're bragging. But the reality is I'm just sharing the life experiences I'm having. And he made me realize I can go and do this for other people as well. I can bring value to them. And because I did that, what started to happen was Alon started to open up his network to me. He started to open up connections to me. He started to let me see what was going on. I started to get experience. I started to be around higher level deals. I started to understand the New York market. I started to have a support. And so he elevated and helped boost my growth in my journey. So even though I was only a few months in to real estate, I was able to then pull from his years of experience and basically get mentoring for free because I impressed a king. And by the way, notice that like Alon, I said he was younger than me. Guys, a king is a person who has an influence, who has an audience, who has access to a kingdom that you want to step into. Learn to impress the king to gain access to the kingdom. Learn to craft your services, to craft your value for the king, not the peasants, not the ordinary people. And so we have, oh, look at that. So it's starting to play.
Yeah, you
I'm going to
paused
pause that because you guys could go, guys, if you want to go watch that, it's in my YouTube somewhere. You guys go watch the whole thing. But then, Sam, I want you to talk about this because you did something similar with respect to crafting for kings and really leveraging influence and leveraging the ability to go and connect with people who were in a position of authority, people who had experience, in order that you were able to really, you kind of were able to skip the line, if you will. You got to skip the line of progression and have these quantum leaps in your own business and your own development. So can you talk about this a little?
Yeah, 100%. Is this the only photo that you have, or do you have a few more with some of the others?
This is the only photo that I have because
Okay.
my Instagram was tweaking and I could barely
Gotcha,
get
you're all
any
good.
other photos.
I wanna highlight some of these names, right? Because and I wanna hit on this. Anyone, if you're in the real estate space, you know who this guy is, you know Eric Klein. We did this before Eric Klein was effectively known by really anyone. He was coming up, but he wasn't Eric Klein quite yet. I had a very fundamental understanding from the very beginning of getting into this industry that I had a lot of things to learn, but I didn't want to spend the time necessary to learn it. I wanted the cheat code. right? And Marlon, you called it a highway. I think the best phrase really is a quantum leap, right? It's you do something that just expedites and it compresses your growth. And so I want to give you guys a few names. And I knew that it wasn't even just about getting around I knew that it wasn't even around just getting around influencers, but it was about getting around the biggest visionary minds out there. And what's cool is Eric Klein right now is one of the, in my opinion, he is probably the biggest and best sales trainer in this industry. And the trajectory he's on is insane. His time isn't free. He charges for coaching, and he should charge a lot for what he does because he's produced insane results. I got that time with him for free. I've
Mhm.
have his phone number. I actually was texting him last week. He's become an amazing friend to me for free. There's other people that you guys may have heard of, may have not. You guys may know the name Robert Wensley, the founder and CEO of InvestorLift. I'll put it to you guys. I want to really drive this home. Robert Wensley, at the age of like 30 or 29 or 30 or something, turned down a $150 million offer for his software company InvestorLift. He turned it down because it wasn't high enough. Robert Wensley has become a very close personal friend and mentor to me. I even have a portfolio business, Marlon knows this, that Robert Wensley has been a phenomenal advisor on. That business is hitting records like literally every month. And Rob Wensley was one of the core reasons why. His mentorship to me, our friendship, cost me nothing. One of the best friends I have. One of our favorites together. This amazing human being who will disrupt the way that you process, your purpose for being here in life. It's a guy named Kent Clothier. You guys may not know him. If you guys are on the new side, you're brand new, you may not know him, and that's by design. Kent Clothier is who you go to when you're already advanced and you want to learn how to go from being advanced to being an absolute master in the game. And to put that into perspective, Kent Clothier was doing $1.8 billion a year at the age of 30. At the age of 30. Kent Clothier, we had him on the podcast. We had him, Rob Wensley, Eric Klein, someone that, oh my God, I think there's been so much overlap between you and me and who we've interviewed. We had Steve Trang. One of my personal all-time favorites is, if you guys, one of my favorite TV shows out there is a show called Shark Tank. It's a phenomenal show all about entrepreneurs, and you basically see upcoming entrepreneurs go and pitch gajillionaires on their businesses. You guys may know a lot of, like, the most famous one's going to be Mark Cuban or Kevin O'Leary. There's another one. His name's Matt Higgins. I got to interview him and be with him for an hour and a half. Marlon, you actually had a chat with him that day, and so that cost us nothing. We got to sit down and personally, me and Logan, who you can see here on the screens, my co-host for the origin story, we got to sit down and interview a shark from Shark Tank. And you guys, you want to talk about the kingdom, right? The crazy thing about the kingdom with Matt Higgins is he is partnered with Gary Vee. He is currently partnering with Kim Kardashian on businesses. And what's cool is that I have Matt Higgins' phone number and I can text him. I obviously respect his time and I'm not going to bug him, but that door has been opened to me. And think about the connections that can come through that as long as I serve him. And so what we realize is that through the podcast, right, the origin story, it was an absolute cheat code to get free relationships and mentorships with some of the biggest and baddest people out there. And I want you guys to really listen into this specific thing. Everyone here, some of them already massively established. A lot of them, Naaman Taylor is a personal friend of both of ours. Naaman Taylor was on Origin Story, and he was still coming up. And I'd argue he still is coming up, but he's 10 times bigger than he was back then. The cool thing is, if you can catch the person early in their journey and give them a platform when they're trying to, make it in their brand, you will almost always have a relationship with them forever because they remember you as the person who gave them a platform when a lot of other people wouldn't. And so the beautiful thing about this is it's not just free mentorship. It's the relationships that come out of it at a very long standpoint. And here's what's cool, guys. All of my businesses, literally everything I've ever done has 10x'd because of the people that we interviewed on Origin Story. It's an amazing, amazing tool. And bro, if I didn't do it, I would not be worth a fraction of my net worth. I wouldn't make a fraction of the money I make right now. Hell, if we didn't do that and you didn't do yours, you and I probably wouldn't be here today doing Think Big.
We wouldn't. No,
Crazy.
absolutely not. I mean, you and I, it's funny because I've even had you come on to my podcast, which is funny because it allowed me to get to know you better. And so what's interesting is a lot of people don't realize as well, when you go and you start to craft for kings and you start to create these relationships, you're also gaining in credibility of the individual. And so there's an associative credibility. Now, here's there's it's important that you vet who you bring on, because with the association, there's possibility to gain their negative credibility if they have that. There's possibility to gain negative association. Now, if you're always doing the right thing, you don't have to worry about it as much, because people will be able to always come back and say, well, you know what, Sam Singh, Marlon Johnson, like those guys have always been on the up and up. They've always done the right thing. So it's not a guilty by association. However, it is a build by association, which is kind of cool, that you have the potential to also gain a strong sense of authority within the marketplace by associating with people who are doing the right thing. And so this is something that I used to not think about so much, because I just felt that, well, everybody is equal. And at some degree, that is true. At the level of your soul, yeah, we're all equal. At that level, I mean it. We are all equal at the level of the spirit, at the level of the soul. Now let's come to earth. In the world, in the marketplace, we are not all equal, right? The reality is Sam has different skill sets than I do. The reality is Matt Higgins has different skill sets. The reality is Alexis Morgan has different skill sets. These people, Abraham, they have different skills. They have different attributes. And so now, based on what you're wanting to do, based on the level you want to go to, start to seek these people out intentionally. And here's a little, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Here's a little bit of advice to start thinking about. You might be aware of who it is you want to impress. You might be aware that, like, you know what? Okay, I for sure know I want to get into Sam Singh's circle. I come on the Think Big podcast, and I've been trying to figure out how to get into his world, but there doesn't seem to be an opening. He's a very focused human being. He puts his head down. He's not on social media responding to every DM. I don't have his phone number. He doesn't do events. He's not out speaking. How do I get into his world? Well, here's a little cheat code. Start to pay attention to who he associates with. Start to look at, well, who's in his circle of influence. This is how you get to the king, because sometimes you don't get a direct line to the king, but you know who is the king's right-hand man or left-hand man, or who's inside of the castle with the king. And you might say, well, you know what? I do see that Sam and Logan used to host the Origin Stories podcast. And I think I could get into Logan's good graces. And you start to go and you impress Logan. And maybe you already have a connection with Logan, and you now impress Logan. And because you were able to impress Logan, Logan begins to open up the doorway to Sam. Sam, somebody the other night asked me they asked me if I can introduce them to somebody that you and I both know. And actually, that's a lie. They asked me to introduce me to somebody that you know. I don't know this person. I know of this person, but I personally do not have a personal relationship with this person. And I said to them, I said, hey, I would love to be able to help you out. In fact, I love where your head is at, because they have a business opportunity. They're wanting to lend. And they're like, hey, that person already has an entire community of all of my clientele. Like, everybody inside that person's community could be a perfect fit for my product. And I said, I love that that's how you're thinking, that you're not looking to go and pick up your audience one by one, but you're looking for someone who's already captured your audience, is holding your audience somewhere, and you can bring value to them. Love it. But sorry, I can't help. I don't have a relationship with that person. I'm the wrong guy. I said, well, who can help? And I said, well, I mean, Sam knows them, but to be honest, you don't have a relationship with Sam. And I'm speaking frankly to the person. And I always speak frankly. you haven't impressed me enough with this particular opportunity that I think it would be worthwhile for me to bring it to Sam, because I don't want, and I like, based on what you've shown me already, all I'm going to do is piss off Sam. Like, and he's not going to get so mad at me, but Sam's going to be thinking, why did Marlon waste my time with this? He knows me better. So you want to be able to impress the person who has access to the king or queen in that kingdom. You already have your in. You already have your circle of influence. I guarantee you, you're only a few degrees of separation from whoever it is you actually want to connect to. And that's why I showed that slide earlier about the more, better, before new. Because if you constantly keep on working on more and better, you keep getting better at what it is you do, and you keep bringing it back to your current circle of influence, you will eventually impress the person at the highest level inside of your circle that will help you get to the king or queen that you're looking to get to. The thing is that you've got to be intentional about who you're trying to connect to. Everything always comes back to clarity. Everything always comes back to clarity and focus. And so knowing that, oh, I am trying to impress Sam, you may say, well, let me go impress Logan, or let me go and impress Marlon, or let me go and impress, Arnold Schwarzenegger, because like him and Sam are homies. And so you want to go and impress the people that Sam is spending time with on a day to day. All right, Sam, would you say that's a fair bit of advice?
Yes, fair bit of advice. I'm gonna frame it a little bit differently because I want people to understand this and understand the gravity of that specifically. And I don't even want it to come across as advice. I want it to come across, honest to God, as a fair warning. The reality is, the people who you may want to have relationships with, they don't have a ton of time on their hands. And so you may not get tons of chances to make a first impression over and over and over again. And so a lot of times people are like, hey, Sam, I had this conversation with so and so higher level person, and I could feel like they didn't like it. They didn't like me, and like I can't get through to them anymore. And I'm like, cool, tell me about that first interaction. And they're like word vomiting about all the things they did. I'm like, yeah, you just came across as chaotic and messy and a taker. Why would they spend time with you? And the problem is you've already cemented yourself as that in that person's mind. And there's so much opportunity on that person's mind and in their ecosystem that they can't slow down to give you a second chance. And the bigger the person, the smaller a window you have. And here's the key. When you want to go and do what we call a trust transfer, right? Marlon and I, we're trust brokers. A lot of people come to me and they want access to Marlon, and I will openly tell them that I'm not going to do that. Like, you slide into his DMs on your own and fend for yourself, but I'm not going to risk the trust and relationship that we have by allowing you to go pitch him on shit that doesn't even apply to anything and won't give him benefits or value in any way, shape, or form. When you were trying to deal with the trust broker and you were trying to basically, because here's the thing, guys, when you go to me and you say, Sam, introduce me to Marlon, or Sam, introduce me to Logan, and Marlon knows how protective I am of my relationship with Logan Manzanares. I am so damn protective. No one that comes to me to this day have I ever connected directly to Logan, except for maybe Marlon. I've never done it, and I probably won't ever do it. And the reason why is this: that relationship means so much to me that I don't know you. I may not know you well enough. I may not trust you well enough. I don't know that you're just going to go there and waste his time, because here's what happens. If you go and waste Logan's time, Logan now associates that time wastage with Sam's trust. Because Sam, every time I say, yeah, Dave, go talk to Logan, you know what I'm doing? I'm not just passing you off to him. I'm giving you my stamp of approval. And now my name is not worth much. And guys, I know we're talking about ourselves here, but imagine someone who's worth $100 million and their right-hand man. That right-hand man, right? If you're worth 100 million, the amount of people that want into your circle, especially your inner circle, your tight circle, thousands upon thousands upon thousands. The right-hand man or the right-hand woman, that person is there for a very specific reason. And one of the reasons is discernment. They are a filter from everyone else. And the bigger they get, the more protective they are of their circles. So when you do go and ask someone to put their stamp of approval on you, right, and be a trust broker, broker some trust to whoever it is you're trying to connect with, honor that person. especially if they say yes, and especially if they allow you to make the connection. Because now, if you screw up the pitch, or if you go and just become a taker, now you're a nuisance, and they start thinking a little bit less of the person who brokered their trust to you. So, guys, if you want to do it, like, it's a phenomenal strategy. Here's the thing: we have relationships with Matt Higgins. We have relationships with a lot of people who are worth hundreds of millions and a few even worth billions. And I haven't done anything with them quite yet because I'm not ready to call in that favor. I
Yep.
am not ready with the capacity that I have, the opportunities that I have to warrant a seat at that table. I'm not willing to burn that ticket just yet, because if I did, I would be taking too much of a risk. I'm going to wait, keep developing myself until I'm ready to earn a seat at that table. And I have conviction that the pitch, the ask, the favor, the trust brokering, it's not just going to be a yes, it's going to be a hell yes with good faith all the way through. And I want everyone to be really careful about it, because in the world of entrepreneurship, we're so protective of money and we're so protective of our businesses, but we're not nearly as protective of our relationships as we should be. And they're probably, in my opinion, they're more important than the businesses. They're more important than the money. Very,
I
very
I
much so.
I share that opinion wholeheartedly. And so this is why I like Deborah's question here, which is how did you continue your relationship with the Kings after your podcast? And so Deborah, I'm going to give my opinion on it, and I'm curious to hear Sam's opinion as well. My opinion is this: people do not remember necessarily all of what you say. They do remember how you make them feel. And my intentions always with the podcast is to truly build a connection and get to know that person. And I want to make them feel special. I want to make them feel heard. I want to make them feel seen. I want to make them feel acknowledged. And so during my podcast, before and during, that's what we focus on in the way I invite them, in the way I white glove service, the making sure that the communication is there. So we're starting on time. I'm respectful of their time. I personally like to do research on my guest. And that means because typically a lot of our guests, they have notoriety, they have been places. And I don't want to make it another run of the mill podcast for them where, okay, great. I'm so happy that you're here. Can you tell me where did you start? I mean, they've never been asked that question before, right? And so instead, I like to do some research and show them that I thought enough of them to take the time to put in effort and really come prepared to our podcast, to our interview. And as a result of doing that, what happens is I like to believe I leave them feeling good. I like when I get a compliment from them at the end saying like, wow, I've never had a podcast episode like this. Hey, is it cool if we get the raw footage? I mean, like, I want my team to share this. Like, hey, when are you going to post? Like, when they start saying things like that, that means they're proud of what we just created together. And so now we solidify this experience. And although they may not remember every word I said or every word they said, they're always going to associate that feeling. And you all know, if you truly build a feeling in, that feeling is cemented for life. This is why you can all still think back about the field trip you had in the first grade, or your birthday party when you were 10 years old, or these random moments in time, because there was a good, positive, strong emotion to it. And so if someone ever brought that memory back up to you, although it may not be at the forefront of your mind, the minute they started to speak on it, or you saw someone from that memory, it would all come flooding back in. So I solidify my relationship with the Kings that way, because to Sam's point, I don't just spend rapport because I have it. I don't just spend my ask because it's available to me. I save it. So I have a lot of ask banked up right now for in the future when it's necessary. In the future, when I make an ask, not only am I positive that that ask is going to be answered with a yes, but also that ask is going to be of major benefit to both them and I, and to all involved. And so until I have an ask at that capacity and that magnitude, I'm not going to spend it yet. And on occasion, Deborah, from a tactical standpoint, I do keep little, like, we'll do trinkets. So this is actually kind of fun, Sam. You'll like this, because we have the podcast studio here. I was talking with Ben, my videographer, and we're getting a Polaroid inside the podcast studio. So when guests come in, how cool is this? we're going to snap a Polaroid photo together, and they're going to leave with a physical trinket from our time together. And then I'm also going to have that up on the wall, right? And on the back of that Polaroid, I'm going to write the date that we filmed. And what I'm going to do is each year on that date, I'm just going to send a message. Hey, man, it was so fun. I can't believe it's been a year since we did this. And so, Deborah, that's actually something I do with some of my favorite guests, like Devin Burr. Devin Burr, awesome human being. Every now and then I will just message him like, yo, dude, it's been like so long. In fact, this past year, I didn't message him. He messaged me saying like, dude, can you believe it? It's been 4 years since we did our first podcast episode together. And I was just re-listening to it. Right. And so these are the little things I do to nurture those relationships, aka nurturing my garden. What do you do,
I'm
Sam?
stealing that. Dude, I am stealing that so hard. That is such a great, especially with like, are we talking like, a Polaroid that produces like maybe more of a vintage feeling kind of?
Dude, 100%, like old school,
Oh.
like, because it's so freaking dope. Like, I personally like them. I'm cheesy and nostalgic like that anyway.
Dude, they're so good. There's something in photos from Polaroids. Everyone looks so much hotter in a photo from a Polaroid. You take a photo with a digital camera, you all look like shit. You take a photo from a Polaroid, you're like, dude, this is like supermodel shit. I love that, dude. I am stealing that all day. I don't care. I'm stealing that. That is a great idea. And here's the key. Here's what I love. The fact that a year later, right, you'll send it to them because they remember it. You know how many people, these people, I want everyone to understand this. They all go on a million podcasts, tons of them. Right off the bat, you want to do something just to stand out? Most of those podcasts don't actually produce content from those podcasts. They're just doing the podcast to do the podcast. So one little thing you can do, edit the stuff, get an editor, invest a little bit of money and make it really good. Make it really intentional. Don't just throw it into like an automated AI video editor because those things usually do suck right now, at least. Edit it, give it to them, create the content for them to post. Hack, look at their social media and understand how they like their content to look and do your best for your editor to mimic the style and the themes that they're already operating within. So it's synergistic with the brand that they're growing. Do that. Second thing, follow up with them. Third thing, pay attention to their launches. One of the biggest things as an entrepreneur, everyone that you're going to interview, almost all of them are entrepreneurs and they're coming out with books. They're coming out with giant documentaries. Some of them that we've interviewed have gone on to get their own TV shows. Like, think about that. They have big things coming up in their lives. Keep tabs on those things. And as those big milestones hit for them, support the heck out of it without telling them that you're going to do it, without collaborating with them and openly like, hey, how can I support your book launch? How about you just go and invest some money and buy 100 books, give them away for free to people in your audience, and don't tell them that you did it, because I swear to you, it will get to them that you did it, in that feeling that they will have. Marlon bought 100 of my books and sent it out to a bunch of people, and then I'm going to check my phone. Marlon never texted. Oh my God. That will set you apart a million different ways. A million different ways. And everyone that we've had on Origin Story, we've supported almost every one of their ventures that I can think of. Kamaha and Tristan, right? We supported their launch, their TV show. They had merch. I'm like, it was my thing for the next like 5 episodes of Origin Story to buy merch that Kamaha and Tristan, their Deals in Aloha merch, and send it to all my friends. Never told them it was me. And eventually, I'm sure they looked at their order. They're like, who the heck is this person in Central California who keeps buying our stuff? And then eventually they're like, was it you? And I'm like, yeah, it's just good to do. With Matt Higgins, Logan being amazing, as amazing as he is, he bought like hundreds of Matt Higgins' book just to give away for free to help spread his mission, spread his message. And here's the thing, guys. In the beginning, you may not be able to do that. You may not be able to drop a couple $1,000s on someone's books, and that is okay. You need to find other ways where you can uniquely give value to these human beings. And there's a lot of ways to do it. You just have to be thoughtful and have intentionality with it. Someone that I've seen Marlon do a phenomenal job of this with, and to my understanding, I don't know that there may have been, a monetary gift at some point, but someone who I saw you you've helped motivate them, inspire them, and I know you guys will be lifelong friends for this. It was with Anne Marie Norton. You and I think the first time we spent time with Anne Marie Norton was in Puerto Rico. Was that the first time we met her? I think it was
Yep.
the first time you met her. I think I had met her
That was
prior,
my
but
first time. I didn't even know she existed. It never even occurred to me that Jerry had a wife.
yeah, we all knew Jerry Norton had 10 kids. Just didn't know that there was a wife involved. Jerry's wife, Anne Marie, phenomenal human being and one of the most articulate women I've ever met in my life. So introspective in a very beautiful way. I remember being in Puerto Rico with them, touring their hotel that was under construction, the Looking Glass Hotel. And I remember Marlon, it was like 100 degrees. There was no air conditioning. You just somehow got Anne Marie in this hour-long conversation. You guys were both going together. It was beautiful to witness. What you did with that is, and I remember you pouring into her specifically about the fact that she needs to get in front of the camera more because people don't talk the way that she talks. People don't relay information, communicate thoughts the way that she does. And there are so many people in the industry, especially women, who need to hear her because they can't resonate with Sam Singh and how he talks about stuff. They can't resonate with Alex Hormozi or Kent Clothier. They need Anne Marie's voice to be there, and they will only respond to her. And then what you did was amazing. You brought her, I believe, on the virtual podcast, and then she flew out to Phoenix, and then you did an in-person podcast with her. And what's cool is this, guys, forget the content. What I saw happening externally, because I know Anne Marie, is Marlon gave her confidence and faith in her own they to crush it as a brand. And then I think ever since they've been doing the couples retreat where
Yep.
they are now doing like 2-3 day mastermind events where Anne Marie gets to teach people how to thrive as super high earning entrepreneurial couples, navigating marriage, relationships, the dynamics of that with growing an empire. And I would say this is me speculating here, that Marlon had at the very least, a decent part to play in that because you helped inspire her to be more. And so, dude, that's huge.
Well, thank you. It's funny because I was like, "Who is what?" Like, I had no clue where you were about to go with that. I was like, what's about to come out of your mouth?" And so, yeah, I appreciate that. And what's really cool is while I was down, it's funny when I was talking to Anne Marie because I was going to mention this. You started talking about giving, right? Like, give to these people, and I want to highlight this. Every time you've given, it's always been with this zero expectation to receive anything back from that individual. Like, you truly did give with you didn't create a way for them to be able to give back to you. You didn't even intentionally think on how you can possibly get something back from them. Like, you're aware of who they are. You're aware that that relationship can be a benefit to you, but you're okay giving even if it never came back from them ever. And that's one of the keys here. So when you're talking about with Anne Marie, like, absolutely, like, I just saw her and I was fascinated by her level of intelligence and her ability to communicate. And we genuinely just got into a topic, and encouraging her was truly just, I was like, why are you not on more podcasts? And what's cool, Sam, while we were I appreciated this about her because she didn't have to say this to me at all while we were down in Puerto Rico. I was at that couples retreat, the very first one that they hosted, and she had invited me out. And what's funny, guys, is when I went to that couples retreat, if you guys know, it's interesting for Marlon to go to a couples retreat because I'm single. So it was 24, people, and then Marlon, right? So 12 couples and Marlon hanging out in Puerto Rico. Phenomenal time. Absolutely loved it. And she pulled me to the side and she actually said, "Hey, I just want to tell you thank you. And I'm glad you were able to make it. I invited you personally because if it weren't for you, if it weren't the conversations we had, this wouldn't be happening." And I said, "Wow, that's so cool for you to say that to me because one, now you're giving to me, you're pouring back into me, and I wasn't expecting that." And so you want to pour into these people, you want to figure out how to give and really analyze and just seek what is of value to them and give in a way where you don't even need to understand how it may come back around to you. That's the truest form of giving. That's the truest form of crafting a gift for a king. It's for the king. It's for their benefit, not yours. So I love that, Sam. And yeah,
Marlon,
Sydney
we're
said, talk
we're
about third wheel. Yeah, I was absolutely the third wheel.
it's like 30 couples and a Marlin. I could just imagine like the couple role play session. You're playing both parts. So here's the thing: because we're over time, I do want to hit on this really quick because it's so important. This is us coming full circle with this. Marlon, we're giving to these people, right? We're giving and we're giving and we're giving. And we're helping them. We're giving value. We're inspiring them. We're helping sell their books. We're promoting their launch. We're doing all the things. How the hell do we receive from that? All I know now is I've just become someone's promotional material. Like, at what point, how do I know it's time to receive?
There's a saying that Alex put, right? Like Alex Ramosi put it this way, and I think it stands true, where it's you give so much until people basically start begging for ways to give back to you. And that's my answer. So I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. However, that's my opinion based on experience, based on study, based on research is you want to give so much to the point that at some point where like people are just like how do like they're almost getting pissed off that they can't give to you. And that's where you want to be. You want to be
So,
in that position.
yep, and that's perfectly it. So just so you guys know, I'm going over like literally I spent all day today looking at our books and because we're doing our bookkeeping and we're getting ready for taxes. Spoiler, we are getting absolutely destroyed with taxes. It is okay. It's a good thing. It means we're making a lot of money. Here's the thing. One thing I've never quantified it till today because I got to see the numbers to our bank accounts, right? I'm not going to say their name. There's this person in who is someone that I've given tons of value to. Fun fact: we had them on the origin story. They're someone that I've collaborated with through the roof, and I knew that I wanted to just have a better relationship with this person. I didn't know exactly what I wanted out of it. I just knew that I wanted more with this person, and so what I did is I just gave relentlessly. I gave relentlessly, and in the course of giving, I've actually proven it with our freaking QuickBooks today. Marlon, I've confirmed, you know who I'm talking about. I've made this person literally, because payouts are a percentage of something.
Mm.
We've made them, I've made them over $1 million. I've made them over $1 million. And here's the thing, guys. It wasn't, I looked at the timelines of like when certain payments came in and like when the relationship strategically started. After about $500,000 in of just making them $500,000, I made them about $1 million so far, but about the $500,000 point, that's when they actually basically called me and they were like a brute force on the phone. They're like, "What are you doing? I want to be able to give to you. What the hell?" And they knew that I had other things going on, specific portfolio businesses behind the scenes. And they were like, "Let's talk about that. I want you in here. I want us to partner together. I want us to be strategically collaborating on that business. You've made me $500,000, right?" They didn't say that number, but I now know that I'd made them $500,000 at that point. They're like, "I want you to make $500,000 now." And so the cool thing is, if you just give and give and give and give and make someone a ton of money or help promote their whatever the thing is, if you do it enough, as long as they're a normal human being who is sane and understands reciprocity, I think 99.9% of people do, they will tear your freaking door down to give back to you. And here's why. They just won't be able to live with the guilt
Yeah,
if they don't.
it's funny, right? Like because you said understand reciprocity, guys. Like the reality is they don't even have to understand it because it's a law.
Mm.
It's the law of reciprocity, right? Like it's like if a person doesn't understand gravity, it still works on them, even if they don't have the intellectual understanding. And so reciprocity is triggered. And what's cool is, and this will be a whole nother conversation. I think we should do an episode where we really break down giving and like the actual mechanism behind it, and because there's a way you have to posture yourself for it. And I almost want to get Bob Berg from, because he came on, I don't know if he was on Origin Stories, I know he came on Into the Mind. He's the author of one of my favorite books to gift people, The Go Giver. And he helped me understand giving as a practical day-to-day way of being. Growing up in New York, growing up in a big city where it's very much dog eat dog and it's very much every man for themselves, giving seemed like a strategy for destruction. It seemed like how you would absolutely annihilate yourself in the marketplace. And now I'm looking at it as like it's common sense to me that everything you do, you should be seeking to give, you should be seeking to serve, even if you have a W 2, right? Like the best employee, the person who's going to rise through the rank and become the CEO and get the promotion and get headhunted and start their own business and have success is the person who gets a job and doesn't think, man, what's my paycheck going to be? They think, man, how much money can I make the owners? How much money can I make the boss? Oh my gosh. So before I start going on that rant, let me just look at this because I want to answer Sydney's question because she asked a phenomenal question. And I think we'll wrap up at the end of this question. I know
Dude,
we're going a
Sydney,
little bit over,
I just
guys.
want to shout out Sydney because it is extremely difficult for entrepreneurs to come up with really intentional, thought out questions. And Sydney has been top shelf the entire time. I actually really, really love when people ask very thoughtful questions, and Sydney's been on it.
She's phenomenal, dude. So Sydney Nash asks, what's the best way to network at meetups in line with the King conversation to give value and network, even if you're not in the position to have leverage as far as brand, cash, etc. Right. So effectively, you're newer in the space, you're new in the industry, and you do step into a room and you do recognize like that person is of influence, but you feel you don't have any resource to give yet. One thing I would say is observe, right? And this is not the answer everyone wants to hear, but the reality is we do need to observe. And so Sam mentioned this a little bit earlier that I would go and, what's nice is a lot of us we become professional detectives nowadays with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And I would start to go and, basically scrape the internet and see while I'm at that event, I will actually pull my phone out and step to the side and just see, hey, what are they working on? Right. Especially if I know they're going to be there before I get there. Amazing. But if I don't, what are they working on? What are they interested in? What are they doing? Do they have an offer? Do they have a YouTube page? Do they have whatever? And it's going to give me a sense of where their current focus and what their current targets are. Because odds are the people that we're attracted to, that we want to connect with inside of these rooms, the reason we're so attracted to them is because they are focused individuals. They are producing results. Therefore, they have a target that they're aiming at. And I want to be aware of what that target is so that I can begin to help push resources and push conversation and bring things towards that. And if in that moment, I'm like, okay, I see their target, I'm clear on it, but I literally still have no way of adding to it by any means. One thing I like to say is if you're brave enough, and I would recommend be brave enough, still go over and have a conversation with them and be authentic and be genuinely curious and interested in what they're up to. Be genuinely curious and interested because people, if you remember the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, there's one topic that you can always depend on that people are going to want to talk about, and that's themselves. And if you know a little bit about what's going on with them and you ask them to share about, hey, so the project you're working on, like why are you so passionate about it right now? I've been noticing on your social media that you've been posting about this a lot. What's going on with that? And give them space to open up. And then you share authentically with them. If you resonate, if you vibe, people remember authentic people. That's the truth. People remember authentic people. And so in that interaction, have a brief interaction and be okay if in that interaction you walk away with what seems like nothing tangible. Because if you are continuing on and you're going to stick with your journey and you're going to stick with your progress, you two will be in the same room again. And the truth is, some of these people, what's going to impress them the most is when they see you in the same room for the fourth or fifth time. When they see you in the same room for the fourth or fifth time, now they're really going to say, okay, I want to get to know her because she keeps showing up. Who are you that you keep showing up? Because a lot of people fizz out by the third meeting. So that would be my suggestion. Sam, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, this question actually made me just get out my phone and shoot a text over to Robert Wensley. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I want everyone to understand. I've chatted very in depth about this during certain presentations and stage events I've spoken on stage about, specifically about my relationship with Robert. And I would not have the net worth that I have right now if it wasn't for Robert Wensley being a critical milestone human being for me in very, very specific spots in my journey. And I remember the first time that I met him, it was at the MGM Grand and I was 4 months into the game. I just hit my first six-figure month, and I had absolutely no clue about anything in life. I didn't know a damn thing, man. And I just had a friend of a friend of a friend who invited me to come and hang out at a penthouse with a bunch of beasts. And one of them was, and it was Robert Wensley's penthouse. And phenomenal people in that room, amazing people. Rob Wensley's one of them, and I knew that he was basically, the Mark Zuckerberg of real estate. And what was crazy is the level of conversations and the level of the people in there was just huge. And I met some people who are great friends now. Scotty Tregellis, who has Credit Lift. Giuseppe is a phenomenal human being who I met there. Rob and John Wensley, the brothers who run Investor Lift over there. And what was really interesting is I was so out of place because I didn't deserve to be in that room based on the money that I was making, the business that I was running. I had no right to be there. But for some grace of God reason, someone saw something in me and they let me be there. And then guess what? The entire night, Rob just talked to me and took an interest in me. And one thing that I did is because I didn't even have the money at the time to basically afford his product because it's kind of an expensive product. But the cool thing is this, that entire time, I was just very aware of the fact that there was a lot of people in the room who didn't actually care about Rob Wensley. They cared about Robert Wensley, the name. They didn't care about Rob himself, right? And that entire time, I just wanted to have an organic relationship with him because it was the first time I'd met anyone who was as, revolutionary or visionary as him. And what's very cool is by the end of the night, he pulled me to the side and he thanked me for actually giving a damn about him. And it was different for me. It landed very uniquely for me. And he's like, everyone that comes and talks to me, they want to talk about the business. They want to ask me a bunch of questions about that. And you're the only person who basically just asked me how I was doing. And what was really interesting is much later, a year or two later, him and I, I'm in Vegas for an event, for Ryan Pineda's event. And Rob Wensley, was in town doing this penthouse event thing. And he invites me over there. And there was like 150 VIPs in this penthouse that night, right? There's 150 VIPs. He's like, Sam, you need to come out. And I have to go and meet some other people the next day. And Rob's like, dude, just stay, hang out with us, please. I'm like, bro, you got like 100 people here. There's enough freaking people for you to hang out with. And he pulls me to the side again. And he says, he's like, hey, Sam, look at all these people. Do you think I'm not aware that most of these people do not give a damn about me? And in the moment, in a party where everyone is drinking and having a good time, it's nothing inappropriate, but having a good time and just socializing and being happy, the fact that he was the host of the room, the fact that he was able to pull me to the side and just like fire and ice, be able to just be like, hey guys, yeah, great to see you. Sam, I know that these people don't care about me. And the way that he switched it was so interesting for me because it showed me one key thing. The guys at the top of the game, everyone wants their time, but not a single person actually gives a damn about them. And the people at the top of the game, they have this sixth sense of understanding who actually cares. And Rob Wensley, when he pulled me aside, he's like, dude, I know you're one of the only people here that would actually care to spend time with me for me. So what happened that night? Everyone left. I hung out with Rob and his brother and his best friend, and we literally just hung out till like 6 a.m. and we just talked shit all night. We didn't talk about business. We didn't talk about all these other things. We just geeked out on the shit that we were going to geek out on. And we've become so close. And it's because the relationship was never built on, I want to learn about business from you. I want to learn about this from you. I want to learn about that from you. I care about you as a person. I truly do. And I want you to feel that. And the good thing is, if you do, they will feel it. You don't even have to communicate it. So that's my answer.
Dude, that's powerful stuff. This solidified it. We're doing an episode on Go Giving. We're doing like that. That needs to be a whole ass episode by itself. But before we bounce out of here, guys, first off, if you got value, I just got chills listening to Sam share that story because I know how genuine of a human Sam is. And I just love how much he cares about people. And it's an authentic caring. It's truly like he cares about people for them, not for what they can do for him. He just cares. And so I love that. Love you, bro. If you guys got value tonight, do me a favor. If you're on my YouTube, please go over to Sam's YouTube, which is Arch Sam Sing, or just look Sam Sing up. There's really no other Sam Sings. that I've been able to find on YouTube, and subscribe to his page. In fact, let me see if I can even pull up Sam's YouTube, and I'm going to put it in the chat because I want you guys to go over to Sam's YouTube, sign up, subscribe to Sam's YouTube page. Sam, Sam, could you put your own YouTube page in there?
I got you.
So I want you guys to subscribe to Sam on YouTube. I want you to make sure you like the video. I want to make sure you turn all notifications on because each week we go live at the same time every single Tuesday. So I'm going to share this on the screen. You guys should see Arch Sam Sing. Make sure that you turn on all notification. And then here's the most critical step. You hung out. I mean, I looked at the numbers. You guys have been on, and the retention has been here from the beginning of the hour all the way up to we're 15 minutes over, which means I'm going to assume you're getting some form of value. And so if you're getting value, Deborah, Sydney, Miguel, I want you to share this video out with your friends. I want you to share this video with somebody who needs to hear this, because I don't like to see when people are like, oh, that was so good, and then they hold on to it for themselves. That's hoarding. We don't hoard. We share. This is how we grow. So that's your homework tonight. Hit the like, subscribe to Sam, and share this video with a friend. We'll be back next Tuesday for another episode of Think Big. That'll be right before Christmas Eve. Sam, we're doing Think Big Christmas Eve.
Dude, we don't miss.
We don't miss.